Happy Greg Cote Tuesday. We will get to the University of Miami basketball team in a second because they're kind of the cream of the conference, right? That's a thing that's real where they can go into North Carolina and Duke and be underdogs, but I'm not particularly sure why they're still underdogs against North Carolina and Duke, even on the road. They were a 6.5-point dog against Duke, 5.5-point dog last night, and that game wasn't particularly close.
That's the uniforms, isn't it? There's no reason on the basis of this season to make Miami underdogs, that big of underdogs at North Carolina. When you just said that, I was stunned. I mean, North Carolina's a pretty mediocre team this year. They're like 8-6 in the conference going into last night.
It's what they're assuming home court does because Miami lost at Georgia Tech, and winning on the road is hard in anywhere.
And everyone assumes that North Carolina's got the talent to turn it around. They just came off of arguably their best performance of the season, and everyone was assuming, okay, this is when Hubert Davis and company put it together. But no, Jim Larrañaga is 16-19, I think, for his career against Duke and North Carolina. That's exceptional. When you take out the Lean Adidas scandal years where their scholarships were impacted, he might actually have a winning record against Duke and North Carolina. Jim Larrañaga, very sneakily, is one of the top 10 active college basketball coaches right now.
Miami, before Jim Larrañaga got there, were 2-16 against North Carolina. They've been 8-10 against North Carolina while he's been here. 4-4 away from home.
Miami is poised to have a bye in the ACC tournament. You mentioned they're amongst the cream of the conference right now. They beat Virginia. Virginia has a very easy schedule to close out the season. You're going to need someone to pull off an upset if you want a shot at the regular season ACC title. Miami finishes with 3 of 4 at home. They have been flatly unbeatable at home. They have a game against Pitt to close the season. Pitt, man, you got to look back at that game against Pitt where they closed out with an 11-0 run against Miami and just Zay Wong barfed all over the front of his jersey. They've had trouble putting teams away on the road. Last night got a little dicey towards the end, but North Carolina couldn't really hit many shots from outside. Miami's got such a really good team. Zay Wong, Nigel Pack, and Norm Chad-Omier are exceptional basketball players. I saw John Rothstein, I think, who covers the sports, says Miami's got more guards than Shawshank.
They're a top 15 team. They're going to be a team that should be expected to make the Sweet 16. I think it's fair to put the expectations there. Anyone can get knocked out. Anyone can lose in a single elimination tournament, but they're one of the best teams in the country. But before we get to the meat of that and the resuscitation of the program, that as money arrives, I believe that Duke and North Carolina, all of their history isn't going to help them going forward when the money arrives. If we're going to start competing over money, and you're going to have a lot of places like Kansas and Virginia and Louisville, and you can now compete against those cities by going to a city that's bigger than that and getting an equal amount of money. But before we talk about the landscape change, the thing that I wanted to ask you guys, as Denver, as the Nuggets come in here last night and win without their second and their third best player, what is it going to take for us to properly appreciate what Jokic is? How many MVPs does he have to win? Does he have to change his nationality in order for this country to see what an unprecedented talent he is, to be celebrated by this country? Can you do it as a foreigner by merely being excellent, where in one of our giant sports, Luka's doing some of it now, but is there a ceiling on how famous and revered a foreigner, Giannis, a foreigner can be? Are Americans not going to embrace somebody who's that kind of excellence with the stardom that he deserves because he's not from here?
Doesn't it start with him playing in Denver? I don't think it's the nationality, is it? I think it's where he's located. It's just tough in Denver.
He's not particularly marketable either. But it's not the first time a European has dominated on a great team out west. We've seen this before in Dallas. I think what's missing for Jokic, and I think he made it to one Western Conference Finals. It might have been in the bubble. What's missing is memorable NBA Finals appearances where the entire basketball media descends upon two teams playing, and at that point, you can't ignore it. They were dying to make Jamal Murray a star. It's just Jokic doesn't give you much. He's not as marketable as Luka. He's not as marketable as Dirk Nowitzki was. He's going to need to do it with dominance in the finals, and that way you cannot refute his greatness.
It's almost like part of the situation that the UFC has where Islam Makhachev is one of their best fighters, and he's just unmarketable, right? We just had this super fight over the weekend, an incredible fight with him and Volkanovski, and kind of nobody really cares. That's what I see with Jokic. It's like he's a foreigner. He's just there. Like, he just can't be marketed.
Outside of his play, the most interesting thing about him is that his arms are perpetually bleeding. Happened again last night.
The excellence that I'm talking about, though, is something that we have never seen from someone that size. It's not
in
just
that way. We've seen dominant big men and just be truly great and unstoppable. We haven't really seen a big man be a guard and a true big man. He's gigantic.
It's not Magic Johnson 6'9" running the point. Like, it's Jokic being 7 foot whatever.
He's Magic Johnson at that size.
Right. And it's just like
Passing
he
is-
can do stuff that guards can't even do. And I'm like, how?
But even like last night, I sort of went through the pecking order of South Florida sports, and it was like, all right, I'll start with the Hurricanes game, then I'll squeeze the Heat Nuggets game in there, and then I'll get to the Panthers game afterwards. It wasn't appointment television for me to watch Nikola Jokic. He doesn't inspire that, and that perhaps is a failure of us as a sports media for not doing enough to be interested in this incredibly excellent basketball player who now the conversation is, can you give someone who has had almost, I don't want to say almost no, because they did well in the bubble, but a considerable lack of playoff success, 3 consecutive MVPs, because his box score numbers merit it. His advanced numbers merit it. He should be the front runner to win the MVP, but you're like, so we're going to look back on this era of basketball and say that Nikola Jokic was a 3-time back-to-back MVP?
Nobody cares about the MVP, I don't think. I mean, Giannis won 2 in a row. He's not the stature he should be nationally, I don't think. Maybe it's because he plays in Milwaukee. Maybe it's because he's a foreigner. Those things all collide, but I just don't think MVPs count. I think they count, of course, but you have to win championships to get America's attention.
No, but I mean, when we look back on this era, we will look back on, all right, Nikola Jokic, he must have dominated that era. Look, he won 3 straight MVPs. Ultimately, at the end of everyone's career, you look at their resume and go, oh, they did this and they did this and they did this, and Jokic will have back-to-back. I mean, when's the last? Has that happened recently?
I cannot give him 3. You just can't on principle alone. You got to show me something in the poll. I know it's a regular season award, but you got to show me something.
And by the way, if you look at Denver's run, and part of this is because Jamal Murray has been hurt for the last 2 years, but they lost in 5 to the Lakers in the bubble after a really good first 2 rounds, but they were pretty roundly smoked out of the playoffs. They got smoked out of the playoffs last year by Golden State, and I think by Phoenix the year before. They have not had, like, I think the reason why you're asking, why isn't Jokic this big figure? It's because Denver, they've not even felt like a big contender to win the title while Jokic has been there, which is odd considering he's won MVPs and he's been brilliant.
I think I have the answer, guys. I think it's that we don't like that he's un poquito gordito.
I would think that would work in his favor.
It's working for Luka.
Yeah, but he's a different kind of animal, though. Está un poquito gordito. So we look at him and go, eh.
But I think we should marvel at it all the more because he's a little pudgy, a little pale. I think that's something that should be celebrated as a novelty. Last night, and Bam, I'm going to say Bam can frustrate him, but he was 12 for 14 last night for 27 points.
Not a single turnover.
No,
that's
he's
frustrated.
just so big and strong. His menace. He's not the cheeriest of characters, right? But the narrative will be drawn around him if the Denver Nuggets are a successful franchise with him on the court. And despite that one Western Conference Finals appearance, they haven't really been all that successful in a meaningful way with Jokic dominating like this. If he gets to the finals, the media will be there to make him a star. We've seen it time and time again. It's just on his team to get that far.
I think if they play Phoenix in these playoffs and beat them with Durant, with Paul, with Booker, then that'll sort of be his signature moment. That'll make them the favorites in the West. And then you start, you actually apply his regular season greatness in towards winning championships.
You guys say this about his personality type and the city that he plays in, but Giannis won a title. Giannis is more affable. He's doing all of this in his second language. And there has been an inability to sort of see America connect with all the lovable things that Giannis is, even though
he's got a signature shoe. He's got a Disney movie. Giannis is a superstar. I think he transcended already. Jokic doesn't have a signature shoe, right?
Luka
Jokic,
does.
I would love to see a Disney movie around Jokic.
Around his brothers.
What do you think that would go like? Jokic would be wearing his
darker in
Prohibition
tone.
era clothing into the arena. And you would have it there would be the air of menace off screen with his brothers. Tony brought up something with UFC that I am curious about, which is what ends up happening if all of the fighters who are dominating the sport are Nigerian or in the realm of Russia, and they're fighting
Dagestani, that whole like Chechnya area.
the realm of not aesthetically pleasing fights with personality types doing it in their second language with a base that kind of likes when Covington puts on his Make America Great Again hat.
Also, don't have a fight on Super Bowl weekend because no one's
What are you
going to watch
talking about? No, it was an incredible fight.
No, please.
One of the
boring. I didn't even hear
one of
about
the
it.
best super fights there's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. We want a rematch.
We
But
do.
Volkanovski and Islam, they're not these big charismatic stars yet. And the UFC has an issue with that on most of its cards, I would say, which is why Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal are still selling fights. Conor, I saw, is going to be on The Ultimate Fighter. Masvidal's sub-headlining down here in Miami. You need people that can really generate interest, and unfortunately, the greatness of those fighters isn't enough.
Well, we have one coming up March 4th. John Jones returned back to the Octagon versus Cyril Gane. That'll be massive.
He's a superstar. But I'd like having big jam-packed weekends. Don't have the golf. Don't have the Waste Management Open on the Super Bowl weekend.
Well, you
Don't
didn't
do that.
seem like you loved big giant sports weekends yesterday when you were completely polluted. Stugotz here slept through several snooze alarms this morning. He's bombing in late on the highway, rushing in as fast as he can go. Billy, did everyone here celebrate Valentine's Day before leaving their home? Are we?
No one's here
Hell
today.
yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on. There's flat tires, there's tummy aches, there's headaches, there's plumbing issues. Like, no one came into work today. I don't know what's going on.
I thought this was going to be yesterday. I thought yesterday was going to be a day where I sat here alone with a person or two and everybody called in with a series of ailments that were just going to be Super Bowl Monday related ailments. But Valentine's Day, you've been married how long now, Greg?
38 years-ish, something like that. I can't do the math. Got married in 81, I think. What does that mean? 42 years?
You
I don't
lose
know.
track
Wow.
in wedded bliss, Dan, sometimes.
You really do.
you
I
know?
mean, I'm a happily married man.
Mhm.
I did all my perfunctory Valentine's Day stuff last night at midnight.
You can't call it perfunctory and do it
Oh,
well.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. It's not perfunctory because it's something I love. It's a passion of mine. But the wife goes to bed a little bit before me. I'm up at midnight. I had bought a comically big Valentine's Day balloon, a helium balloon, just ridiculously big. It barely fit in my car. I'm putting
That had to be funny, you driving in the Corvette, smushed up against a balloon on your side of the.
Yeah, that Corvette.
Of
Well,
the,
the balloon took
Key
up the
detail.
whole trunk. So I'm looking at my rearview mirror. All I see is a balloon hovering.
unsafe that you are driving in
Yes,
general.
right.
Even more unsafe that you have no access to seeing anyone who's driving
No.
around you.
Plus,
because-
I'd forgotten my glasses, so I could barely see, period.
How
But-
did you get home?
Oh, I crawled. It's an hour. It's a
Yeah.
mile from my house. But the balloon was hidden in the garage, so she wouldn't see it. So last night at about midnight, I'm taking this gigantic helium balloon in the house, and my dog was terrified. Jumpin' Charlie was terrified of this balloon in a way that made me laugh out loud. It was so comical to see a dog afraid of a balloon. It's like when you're watching a dog chase his tail, he never seems dumber. Watching a dog just be terrified of a helium balloon just made me laugh. But
Juju, put it on the poll, please. Does a dog ever seem dumber than when it's chasing its own tail?
right, exactly. But we spend so much money on Valentine's Day. It's ridiculous. Erlene and I don't even exchange gifts, because it's so soon after Christmas and our anniversary. It's like, come on, we need to get another gift. But I'm making a big meal tonight, balloons. I threw a dozen roses at her at the office later today.
I
literally chucked roses at her?
dozen. Why are you calling it perfunctory? Why you make it sound like you're an old timey worker on a train shoveling coal into a furnace?
I mean, anybody who's been married a long time knows exactly what I'm talking about. You love your wife, you want to do the whole Valentine's Day thing, but it's a little bit much.
It's really
just is.
disrespectful to the love that you have for your wife. You
Is
know
it?
what I mean? I love my wife every day. So why does Hallmark come along and tell me that I need to love my wife more today than any
I
other
like
day?
it.
Good point.
I
I
show
like
my
it.
love scattered throughout the year. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it all bunched together in one day. What's the point of that?
And
You know?
by the way, the florists. Oh my God! It costs $200 to send a dozen roses. It's ridiculous.
Well, what kind of roses are these? There's some on Bird Road that's like 2 dozen for $10.
Right by
wow.
La Carreta. Really
Yeah.
nice, too.
Okay, well,
You feel like you're being gouged?
yeah, of course.
What'd you get, Greg? Just out of curiosity. Like, what was the gift
This
to
feels
you?
like a last minute. This feels like last minute. If the florist is charging you $200, it means you ordered them yesterday.
I did. Yeah, I sure did.
You don't want
Proudly.
them to go bad.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. I think.
Proudly?
Yeah. Proudly.
Mm-hmm.
You proudly got gouged.
What am I going to order roses a dozen days in a row? Well, a day in a row for each rose? No. So, we do what we can. She'll get the roses. She'll love them because they're not red. I found out fairly long into our marriage that she hates red roses. And so for now, I'm not sending her red roses.
Do you think that romance is something that is described as perfunctory, has in it also the phrase, I threw a bunch of roses at
I
her,
shouldn't have said that.
and then you also say, we do what we can, which is just none of these things are oozing romance special day, you symbolically cherishing your love, treating it like the treasure that it is.
Right. I did buy a nice card.
There you go. Did you write something in it, or you just kind of went with like, hey, they took care of it. I'll just sign the name.
No, I wrote, you know what? I went overboard. Instead of writing love, Greg, I wrote all my love,
Wow.
Greg. I mean,
That's big, Dan.
it's,
Sometimes you say the card says it all, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
right. You gotta, I'm careful to pick out the right saying on a card.
I do
I
that
am.
and then give my wife the gift of no sex.
That's another thing. The price of cards, please. Hallmark,
Outrageous.
what are you doing?
Simply outrageous.
Like
the price of cards.
$10 a card now. You used to be able to go to a movie theater for $1.50. Now it's $12, $14. That's why I don't go to the theater. But cards are ridiculous. Luckily, it was buy one get one free, which I didn't know until I got to the cashier.
Yeah.
Thank God she told me. That's a small joy in life, is when you had no idea you were getting a buy one get one free,
BOGO.
and you find out at the cash register. It's great.
You save it for a rainy day for next year. Give it to the mistress. What do we do with the extra card?
You know what? I buy two and I sign one as if it's from the dog and the cat.
I like that move.
Yeah.
You know what I
Heavy play.
hate? You know what grinds my gears, Greg?
What's that?
There's always like a section that says cards starting at 99 cents or something like
Yes,
that. And you're
yes.
like, let me find that one, because what's really the difference between a 99-cent card and an $8.99 card? I mean, $8 is the difference, but the sentiment really is the same, right? And you're
Right.
the one writing the stuff in it, so it doesn't matter all that much. And then you can never find the card that's actually 99 cents.
That's right.
They don't exist. The 99-cent card does not exist.
It's a bait and switch. They get you there with 99 cents, and then they don't come through for you. I mean, I'm launching into an impromptu back in my day here, but cards themselves are ridiculous now. Some of them, you open it up and music starts playing. There's a big wooden thing on the front of the card. You can't even fit it in an envelope. Just give me a card.
Exactly.
Just a simple flat card that I can sign, put it in an envelope, send it on its way.
Greg, you want to know a trick? You can go to the dollar store. Those cards are $1.
Wow, you
Yeah.
know what?
No one does that, though, because they feel like there's this stigma against going to the dollar store and saving money. I don't get it. You'd have your mind blown, Greg, when you see what's going around on the social medias these days, what the kids are doing. They have these cards that blow up in the person's face, and fake butterflies come out and confetti and all this, and
Yeah.
it just makes a giant mess. And it's really, literally a slap in the face of the person you're giving it to.
Slapping it. Yeah, you can't do that. You just send a regular card. I don't want to get a card that makes music, that talks to me, blows something up my ass,
That's for later.
What?
Just give me a regular card, please.
Also, terrible job by the card industry to print how much you paid for the card on the back of it.
Right.
Because you know that the recipient is going to look.
Yeah.
They're going to look and see, I mean, the recipient, like, so you only spent $2.99 on this card? I saw cards for $8.99. Why don't you get an $8? Is my love now worth $8.99 to you?
That's right. I purposely buy the most expensive card for that very reason. Because we don't exchange gifts, so I got to get a good card and a big balloon.
Sometimes I get a card that's blank on the back, and I put it through my printer, and I put $14.99, and I just print the price on it. Fake price, but
I like
sentiment's the same.
I like that.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you like opening a card and getting music? I would also like to know, I imagine Mike Ryan is the one who does Valentine's Day the most romantically around here.
Why is that?
Because he's a
bit of a romantic.
real softy around his wife.
Yeah, but I don't celebrate Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day. Easy peasy. I might play soccer today. I celebrated it last night.
You were wrong, Dan.
Yeah, you never. I mean, I celebrate the holiday, but I don't do it on Valentine's Day. Number one, the restaurants are a disaster. You get limited menus. You don't get the best effort from restaurants. Traffic is bad. All sorts of nonsense. So what I do is I lock in a reservation weeks in advance on a day that's not Valentine's Day, but around it, and I celebrate it then. I took my two girls out to a lovely dinner last night, and I had a wonderful Valentine's Day, already done and dusted.
That doesn't count. Done and dusted. Doing it before the day means you do Valentine's Day itself more poorly. Not only was I wrong, I was the most wrong. If you ignore it entirely, you are doing it more poorly than even Greg Cote, who
doing it the night before.
You're ignoring the day. It's called Valentine's Day, not Valentine's.
Do you celebrate your birthday on your birthday?
It's
often?
not Valentine's Day before the day.
You
It's
usually
not
do
what
a
it is.
weekend, right? You do a weekend thing where you land on a Moss Miami and we celebrate your birthday.
No.
It's not on the day.
We do Moss.
No.
Yeah, like we don't. Yeah, most people have Halloween. Most costume parties are on the Saturday because you want to take advantage of not having to go to work or avoiding all the hoopla.
I don't agree with that. I think most people celebrate Halloween on Halloween.
Yeah, and Valentine's Day, you got to do it on Valentine's Day. The 14th.
Well, if you want a subpar culinary experience, that is entirely on you. Go for it.
Very crowded. It's going to be unpleasant.
It's an easy night to get a reservation, huh? The night before Valentine's Day?
Not really, because
Really?
this school of thought is really caught on. So you have to do it weeks in advance. And we went to a very expensive restaurant.
Yeah.
Billy, do you
Everyone's doing it.
do you want to stake your
Lovely.
claim, Billy, to you being the one who
Surf club.
celebrates Valentine's Day the best?
I don't care if you guys think I celebrate it good or not. I'm cool. I don't need your approval.
Understood, but how do you
Sure, it's a
celebrate
good
it?
point.
I'll
Yeah.
be cooking tonight.
Me too.
Really?
See how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm making a home cooked meal.
Yeah. What are you making?
I'm putting a couple of ribeyes, thick ribeyes on the Weber kettle.
Look at you.
And also, I'm going to buy a couple of lobster tails that I'm
Wow.
going to do. Baked potato. Haven't decided on the veggie. I'm hand dipping strawberries in
I like
in
that.
chocolate that I'm making myself. So
Yeah. You got to be careful with Jumpin' Charlie. Can't get into that chocolate. That's dangerous.
yeah, I know you're right about that. I've
Yeah.
heard that. Why is that? Why can't dogs eat chocolate?
I don't know. I mean, a certain amount they can eat.
I got to ask McGill that.
Yeah.
because I don't believe it.
Oh,
I don't believe it.
Weirdly, I don't think that I've told this story. The night that Grant Wall died, if he had not died, my dog would have died that evening because I came home from dinner early and my dog had eaten a giant chocolate bar on the spot, and I was going to come home like 6 or 7 hours after that, and my dog would have died because he got into such a giant vat of like gift chocolate, like broke open a post office box that was on the pool table and devoured it. And it was a horrible night of having to make the dog throw up for several hours in order to make sure that the dog did not die because chocolate is so bad for dogs.
So Grant Wall saved your dog's life.
Yes,
Wow, good.
strange turn.
R.I.P.
it is. It was a strange turn. It was a strange night. Do you leave in the morning, Billy, with anything Valentine's Day, or do you keep it? Do you keep the celebration to the cooking at night? So
No, I left some flowers. I left some succulents. I left some chocolate, a little card. And tonight I'll put some churrasco on the grill, maybe mash some potatoes.
Nice.
It's going to be a night. Maybe we'll put on Netflix. See how the baby does tonight. Maybe we'll put on Netflix, put on the new Ashton Kutcher flick about love and Valentine's Day. My wife's wanted to see that one, so we'll see how it goes.
So are you the winner? Does Roy stink at Valentine's Day? I suspect Roy stinks at Valentine's Day.
That's right. I said good morning this morning, and that was it.
Oh, did you say Happy Valentine's
morning?
Day, or did you mess this up again?
No, I didn't
Text
say it. No.
her right now, Happy Valentine's Day. We just
No.
went over this.
Here's the
for
thing.
your anniversary.
I'm getting clear prepared for her Valentine's Day for her school, and not really thinking about, hey, I'm married. Maybe I should do something for my wife.
Wow.
And
you,
then
you should think that.
yeah, I should think that. Except tonight, I gotta take Claire to soccer practice. So
This soccer practice
big
of
soccer
Claire's is
night.
always
I'm
getting in the
telling you.
way of everything. Your anniversary,
Tuesday and
Valentine's
Thursday.
Day. Yeah, well,
yeah.
Roy, you did nothing? You left the house and you didn't even wish and need a Happy Valentine's Day?
You are correct, Dan.
how are we doing this again? We just went over this. Roy, at some point in the next half hour, Anita's going to text you Happy Valentine's Day, and we're reliving what we just went through 2 months ago for your anniversary. How is this happening again?
The countdown is on. I'm waiting for said text. to
Text
come
her
in.
first.
Text her first.
Text her right now.
Right.
Happy Valentine's Day. Can't wait to see you tonight. And
Wait
surprises
for
in
her to listen to
store.
this episode.
No,
Put
you
out,
gotta
put out a shock Insta story where you tag her and go, Happy Valentine's
No,
Day, and
it's-
she's surprised by that.
Corny.
Happy Valentine's Day. No exclamation point.
No, you gotta
no,
know.
all caps, exclamation
two or
points,
three.
All
and
caps.
A
Yeah.
minimum of 2 emojis.
I mean,
A heart.
she's known me for damn near 20 years now. She knows I'm not gonna go all caps and an exclamation point.
All
That's
caps
Maybe a
is-
gift. Maybe a love
Surprise her.
gift.
surprise her.
Bring
She
the
knows
surprise
she's
back
getting
into marriage.
She knows what she's getting, though. That's what Roy's saying. She's getting a good morning. I mean, that's
What
that's
is-
it.
what is
Dan,
it?
did you leave anything?
What does Abby get? Yes.
I just left. I left the house.
Not even a good morning, huh?
That was your gift,
Yes,
leaving?
leaving.
You scampered out of the house after hitting the snooze button several times.
Oh, no. I slept right through everything this morning, man.
I had a wonderful
Bad.
romantic evening. It's the first Valentine's that I celebrated with my daughter. We were all dressed in appropriate festive
That's
outfits.
nice.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to enjoy Surf Club on a nicer night where I didn't have to have a limited menu. This is we said Happy Valentine's Day. I just did it earlier than everybody else. You're shaming me.
No, part of Valentine's Day is completely inconveniencing yourself. You know what I mean? It's like, how many hoops am I willing to jump through to make the person that I love see that I'm going to be miserable on their behalf? That's really what they want. On
I
Valentine's
thought that was
Day,
marriage.
on Valentine's Day, your loved one wants to see you be as miserable as possible for them.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Billy's got it right on the nose.
The effort
Sometimes
is the point.
in marriage, sometimes you have to do the limbo. You know, you got to bend over backward. That's what you do.
They'll almost be inconvenienced just to watch you be inconvenienced and Max uncomfortable, just to see that you care.
That's part of the gift giving.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Limbo.
What are you doing tonight, Dan?
Well, I had plans, but Valerie's not feeling well this morning. So our plans are, I'm going to have to end up moving Valentine's Day to another day that she feels better.
wow.
Really?
Jeez.
Really?
I like that. Yes.
Not my doing.
Bruises have table.
Oh, it's her fault, huh?
Wow.
Wow.
She's not feeling well.
What restaurant had you rented out just for the two of you?
How many Cupids did you hire?
Can I use your reservation?
Is that where Chris Cote is? He's just suspended as a
Oh, I
baby
forgot
Cupid.
to call him to tell her that she's not feeling well. So we're not going to be walking into the room where he's suspended as Cupid wearing only a diaper.
Dan, this is actually great for you. You may not realize it, but you now have all the power in this. You need to pretend to be completely disappointed and heartbroken and inconvenienced because you had such grand plans. You need to play the pity card and be like, this was supposed to be such a special night. And then your stupid stomach got sick and now we can't do anything and it's all been ruined. You have the power now. This is the rare moment where you have the power on Valentine's Day. You need to take advantage of this. What are you going to do?
Well, I did an assortment of things this morning, but I don't think that the most romantic thing is to leverage the power.
No, that's absolutely what you have to do.
Leverage
This is
is
such a
everything,
rare
Dan.
I
opportunity,
also thought
Dan.
that was marriage.
This is such a rare opportunity that you have where Valentine's Day is now yours because you made the effort, but it was ruined by someone else. You need to take advantage. What do you want to do? This could be the one and only Valentine's Day, Dan, where you get to do what you want to do. What do you want to do for Valentine's Day?
Same thing I do every day.
No, that's not true. You want to do something. Probably nothing. That's what I would want to do.
I don't want to make her feel guilty about feeling.
No, you have
bad.
to. This is your chance.
Not really the way that I want to spend my relationship time, making someone feel worse than they already do when they feel bad. That sounds like dysfunction.
They'll do it to you. I mean,
Exactly.
Marriage.
Yeah. You'll learn.
Terrible people.
Oh, come on, man.
I don't know how Roy gets away with that. Roy, I don't know how you do
Me
it.
neither.
Very carefully.
You
And
set,
you're-
you set expectations so staggeringly low that you clear them with a
But
good morning.
Anita's such a saint. She's like one of the nicest people I've ever met and deserves the world. And you're falling short, buddy. I hate to break it to you. I don't want to do this on air, but the tough love is
you aren't
necessary.
doing it on air.
It's necessary here. We just went through this to avoid the situation. Step it up.
I will. I will attempt to.
A stunning number of people rushed to the defense of Chris Whittingham on behalf of loneliness.
Yeah, I mean, people were like, I got messages from people all day like, hey, I like being alone too. Well, then why don't you ever tell people? Why am I the only one that ever says that I like to be alone? Also, it's not good to like to be alone. I needed shaming yesterday, and instead all I got was a bunch of support. I don't want your support. Shame me. I shouldn't want to be alone this much.
On Super Bowl Sunday, he decided to cook up a nice steak, and it really is. I have some friends like this who have gotten into their 50s without ever being married and will just not eat a meal all day and then make some ribs at 10 p.m. because they're just formed.
So jealous.
And
Sounds like the life, man.
And they just,
Miss those days.
And they just can. And so Whittingham celebrated Super Bowl Sunday by just throwing a steak on the skillet and enjoying the hell out of I'm Alone.
My brother does that. Uncle Dick Cote lives alone, turns meal into an art. You know, shops here, shops there, gets special ingredients, calls me up and says, I'm trying a Chateaubriand. You know, just very
On a hot plate.
Yeah, I gotta have a hot plate.
very ambitious dinners for himself, which I think is great. And I think Witty, mental health wise, I think being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable in your own company, admitting that you like being alone, I think that's wonderful. I think that's great.
Thank you. And yet more support that I don't want.
Okay.
I don't want your support,
All right,
people.
then you're a loser.
Go on
Find
and find a
somebody.
woman.
Thank you.
Jeez.
You're welcome.
Uncle Dick got a hole-in-one, though, Chris. I mean, that could be
Exactly.
in your future also.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. He has.
Uncle Dick, I've told people this, Stugotz, because Greg Cote, strange as he is the version of this that is domesticized by a woman and getting married. If I start asking questions about Uncle Dick,
Yeah.
you guys are going to find out that he's one of the strangest people in the world. What time does Uncle Dick go to sleep at night?
I can't call him past 5 p.m. because I think I'm going to wake him. And I would say 90% of the emails I get from him are sent at like 3:38 in the morning. You know, he has unusual hours. I will say that for him.
What time do you think he goes to sleep at night?
I would say 5:30. He probably waits till dusk, I would guess. He probably what time does it get dark? Like 6?
6, yeah,
Okay.
around 6.
I would think he waits till 6. But literally,
These summer months are tough on Dick, right?
It is. Yes, daylight savings time is rough. No, I'm afraid to call him after 5 or 6 because I might wake him. Seriously.
What would you say is the strangest thing about Uncle Dick? Like if you had to put together a list and go to the most unusual of things, because I've talked to both of your sons about this,
Yeah.
and they are frustrated at every turn with how unusual you are. But you are the kind of unusual that perhaps a Cody would be under all circumstances, but diluted by the fact that Erlene will only allow you to be so strange.
Right.
You have had to share your life with somebody else, and that has required you to make changes that perhaps you would not have made if not for her.
Right. It took me a long time to get used to my brother on a golf course humming and whistling during his own backswing. Whistling during a backswing is just something I'd never. You want silence.
It's confidence.
Is it? Is that what
Yes,
it is?
it is,
Or is it
yes.
insanity?
This thing is so easy. I'm going to whistle while I do it. Yes.
Whistle while I work.
Yes.
Uncle Dick, my brother, if you're listening, don't take this the wrong way, but you drive Erlene crazy when we're in the middle of watching something. He'll be visiting. The three of us are watching something dramatic, something on TV. You know, the dialogue, you really want to listen. And my brother, out of the blue, will just start talking to the dog. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Charlie. You know, as if we're not watching a TV a show that's getting ready for a crescendo. Drives her crazy. I mean, I cannot overemphasize how much that disturbs her.
I wanted to talk to Cote about something that got buried in the news of the weekend because there was a lot happening in sports. Wanted to talk to you about Zach Thomas. But, Mike, are you going to Canton? Have you decided whether or not you're going?
I haven't officially decided. I'm seeing if I can go up with some folks. It looked really fun what Stugotz did last year, but I'm really happy for Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas was a part. If there was ever a period I was a Dolphin fan, it was that era when the Browns went away when I was a kid. And I love that Dolphins defense in particular. And Zach Thomas was one of my favorite players. And having met him and know the type of person he is, I'm so happy for him because I truly had doubts that he was getting in. And Joe Thomas is, in my opinion, the greatest offensive lineman ever. Statistically, the first offensive lineman in NFL history, according to a misplaced graphic. But Joe Thomas is one of the best guys in the history of that sport. So I think I want to go up to Canton to celebrate Zach and Joe Thomas because two guys that are totally deserving, and it couldn't have happened to better dudes.
Yeah, I totally agree. Particularly with Zach, who I know very well and have for a long time. And I normally don't like to travel, but going to Canton for his induction may be something that I actually asked to do. He is so humble, so real, so genuine in a way that a lot of athletes aren't. And, a year ago, I spoke to him when he didn't get in the day before the announcement. And, he was at a kid's soccer game. I heard the referee's whistle in the background. He's just living his life. And he's, his whole attitude is, how am I going to be disappointed with this game that's given me so much? And, he's grateful almost to a fault, but that's him. I mean, he's just so genuine, and he deserved it. Man, I could cite all kind of statistics and everything why he deserved it. Just a small example, there's one linebacker in the Hall of Fame, Ray Lewis, with more career tackles than Zach Thomas.
I was totally caught off guard by how emotional I got watching that video of him embracing Jimmy Johnson,
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson telling him with his family there. My tears welled up, and I know how important that was to Zach. He's also top 3 most famous people I've ever peed next to. And we even shared a chat while we were peeing. Wow. It was at Dania Highlight. I'll never forget it. I was so happy for him.
Really?
What'd you talk about?
He was just like talking to me about the show. He was a fan of mine. Can you believe that? Zach Thomas, a fan of telling me how great I am while we're both pissing.
That's awesome.
Look at me, Louie, over here.
Don't look at him while pissing. That's untoward.
Number 2 is Paul Pierce.
The truth.
Bellagio. He was playing poker.
Number 1?
Alex Turner of Arctic Monkeys. Underground, Chicago.
What is the category? Most famous people you've pissed next to?
Yep.
Yes.
Mine is Clint Black, the country singer.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Nice.
Very, very short.
What, the penis?
No. I think Clint Black's got, somebody look it up. He's got to be like 5'6" at the most because he was wearing a black cowboy hat while pissing, which I thought was great.
It's not that short.
Really? And with the hat, he was like my size. It was crazy. I didn't say, hey, Clint. Hi, Clint. Love your work. I thought that would have been a little awkward, given the circumstance. It was at a NASCAR race at Homestead. Just wanted to fill in that detail.
He's 5'9".
Is he really?
Yeah.
Seemed shorter. He really did. At least he wasn't 6'3".
The hat threw you off
It did.
on making accurate measurements.
Right, it did. Yeah, but I can't think of anybody else I've pissed next to that's famous. Mark Cuban. But I was in proximity to him, but not directly next to him at a urinal.
Adjacent.
Yeah, adjacent, right. Who else? That's about it. I've pissed next to Le Batard. I guess he'd be the 3rd biggest celebrity that I've pissed next to.
Yep.
That's about
We
it.
all have, though. I mean,
I know. It's nothing special, right?
no,
Yeah, right.
no.
Okay.
Why don't you guys have more gratitude about it instead of just making a commonality that makes it less special than it should be?
Well, he's the one who said everybody has. I wanted to make it special.
You want us to express more gratitude for having Pete next to you?
That's
Want us to
correct.
cherish that
Thank
fact?
you, Dan.
I want you to cherish it. Yeah.
Odd one.
It is special.
I want you to
He was
treasure
he
it
was pissed
instead
off
of
he was behind
diminish
Clint
it.
Black.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I don't want it to be an afterthought.
I hurt your
I don't want to
feelings.
be taken for granted that way.
Are you going to the Hall of Fame? I might join Mike Ryan. I have 2 jets going to the Hall of Fame. I'll never have a day like that again.
You're talking about private jets, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
I think that you guys, all of you, are more likely to say that you're going
I went.
than go. Yes, and it was a miracle. Yes, and kicking and screaming until the last minute. Yes, you did go. But
This class is ridiculous, though, Dan.
It is a good class.
We're getting to the point
Yeah.
now. There was a huge holy shit, I'm getting old moment when I saw pretty much every snap of all these players that are going in at this point. It used to be like, let me Google who that is. I don't recall that. That was before my time. And now all these dudes that are going in were great. I remember them vividly being great. They weren't even great all that long ago. It's pound for pound one of the best classes I've ever seen go in.
do you know how rare it is, though? Because I do think it's real easy for some of us to lose sight of what I'm about to say. Everyone says of Zach Thomas what it is Greg Cote just said. It's a universal truth from people who interacted with him, who were floored at the way that he carried himself with grace and uncommon human touch, given his greatness. It's unusual. You don't get this cacophony of consensus about what an exceptional human being a Hall of Famer was about treating media members who can be treated as janitorial workers by these people because they don't have very much use for us. We're just getting in their way. And in the case of Zach Thomas, often after crushing losses, he would just stay at his locker and continue to answer questions and fill everyone's notebooks until the last question had gone away. And it's unusual to hear nobody be able to say anything negative about somebody, especially in the climate we are today where we can tear anything down. We can be divided about anything. Rihanna can't perform without people getting into fistfights over it. Like there's anything out there that unites people. There ain't very much where you're not getting 30% of the people don't like whatever it is. But who's had the negative thing to say about Zach Thomas? Anything negative.
I mean, you'll see, like, when the NFL put the video out, it actually made me sad to see some replies underneath it that were like, who? Because he is a very Miami figure. I mean, even this conversation, I know it's on the local hour, but this conversation might seem myopic to people that aren't from here and that aren't Dolphins fans and didn't see Zach Thomas have that many big moments. It felt like the reason why it took him 7 years to get in is because a slew of people had to be like, no, this player was incredible. You don't understand. And every fan base knows their linebacker, but you don't really know other teams' linebacker. You sort of get told by the media who are the good linebackers. And I just feel like Zach Thomas had to be explained to people. And so really the only negativity
it was pre-Red Zone channel, right? So you're
Right.
not actually seeing some of the regional games. And for 20 years, the Dolphins didn't matter.
Yeah, they weren't on primetime games. He had that one moment on a Monday night game where he did a front flip into the end zone on a
His
on a-
teams
Right.
mattered. His teams mattered. His teams were in the conversation in the AFC. They had primetime games. That was a pretty solid era for Miami Dolphins football. Yeah, they had postseason disappointments.
Those
but-
defenses were pretty good.
Yeah, but they were
I mean, Joe Thomas did not play an important game his entire career.
like a pretty successful franchise.
Well, but how many playoff games did Zach Thomas win? Would it be 2?
He won against Seattle. He won against Indianapolis. It might be 2.
Yeah. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer despite being buoyed by a wonderful franchise at the time. You know, he was overshadowed in his time by Ray Lewis and Urlacher at his own position and by Jason Taylor on his own team. a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that Zach Thomas made more All-Pro teams than Jason Taylor and more Pro Bowls than Jason Taylor. And the thing that makes his likability really pop to me is that he is a classic underdog story. He really is. He was All-State in high school, got 2 college scholarship offers. He was All-America in his conference, drafted in the 5th round by Jimmy Johnson. He shows up at the Dolphins' first preseason banquet, and he goes to his table of 10 to be the player who sits down, and he told me he could see the disappointment on the faces of those people at his table because they didn't know who he was. He was just this undersized fire hydrant, 5'9", 5'10", sitting down, and 25 years later, that kind of thing drives him. He says that's what put me in the gym, in the weight room longer than others. That's what made me watch more film, is because I think he had imposter syndrome to a degree. He always felt like he needed to prove himself, and that motivated his entire career. He did have imposter
syndrome. He would say at the beginning of every week he would have doubt until he prepared himself into a lack of doubt, like
right.
that he would only get to lack of doubt toward the end of a week.
3 career playoff wins for Zach Thomas. I forgot about the 98 playoff game over Doug Flutie's Bills that they won, and then they marched on to Denver and got promptly smoked by Terrell Davis and company. Davis, I think, had close to 200 yards.
But that's why it happened. 3 playoff wins. You guys, we bring full circle this hour. I'm sure Jokic is beloved in Denver. But
no doubt.
But they're
and
not.
They're very defensive on his behalf. Hugely. We'll probably see the mentions on social media. He's got a really passionate fan base that also argues, why isn't this player talked about more? He doesn't have social media. He doesn't really do interviews. He's not affable. He's not overly charismatic. The way that he plays is incredibly impressive. At his size, it's fantastic, but he needs to do more winning for the narrative to be drawn around him. They will always be there to make you a star if you're elite. He is an elite talent, but the team's success doesn't bear that out.
When he's a star in an NBA Finals and all of a sudden America cannot not appreciate him, that's when he becomes the next level superstar.
He's been to the Western Conference Finals, right? Like, he's making it to the Basketball Hall of Fame, but everyone makes it to the Basketball Hall of Fame. I mean, half that team will make it to the Basketball Hall of Fame.
He's one of the 50 greatest players.
Caldwell Pope will make it to the Basketball Hall of Fame.
I think Jokic already, you can make an argument, is already one of the 50 greatest players to ever play the sport.
Excellence isn't enough anymore, man. It's not. And because this is groundbreaking excellence that you're talking about, the possibility
it's ridiculous.
that he'd be a 3-time MVP in the sport that has Giannis in it, that has Joel Embiid in it, that has all of these people who already don't look like anyone who's ever come before them, and he's better than any of them. And all Mike ever says about him is that his arms are always bleeding.